detecting that the host has failed to complete the strategy mission within the stipulated time. You are about to be forcibly obliterated from this world. Please choose your departure time. The system's cold, mechanical voice echoed in Ophelia Quinn's mind. She didn't answer immediately. Lying in the hospital bed, her face was pale, devoid of any color, and even breathing seemed like an exhausting task. Despite this, Ophelia struggled to lift her hand and dialed Ethan Price's number one more time. She told herself this was the last time she would hold out hope for Ethan. It took a long time for the call to connect. I was in a car accident and broke my left leg. Can you come keep me company? From the other end came the raucous laughter of men and women. Ethan was talking to someone. Ophelia listened quietly for a long time before he suddenly remembered the call and asked casually, "I didn't hear you clearly just now. What's wrong?" His voice was laced with laughter, as if something wonderful had just happened, completely ignoring the weakness in Ophelia's voice. Ophelia showed no expression, but the fingers gripping the phone trembled violently. In that instant, the pain in her heart was far more intense than the pain in her body. The man who once never left her side had, at some unknown point, drifted further and further away. She blinked, hiding the mist rising in her eyes, and took a deep breath as if making a final decision. When she spoke again, her voice was terrifyingly calm. "Nothing, I just wanted to ask when you're coming home." Ethan didn't sense anything unusual. His tone was light and breezy. "Be good, don't wait up for me tonight. Go to sleep early." Ophelia didn't say anything else, and Ethan immediately hung up. The nurse changing Ophelia's dressing listened to it all in silence. Her face showed pity, and her movements became much gentler. "Miss, my mom brought me dinner. Let's eat a little together." Ophelia was stunned, then forced a smile. "Thank you, but I'd like to sleep for a while first." The nurse didn't press her, offered a few words of comfort, and left. Today was the 10th anniversary of Ophelia and Ethan's meeting. They had personally designed a pair of rings and agreed to pick them up today. But Ethan suddenly said he had something very important to do and told Ophelia to get them herself. When she picked up the rings, the clerk asked, "Did your boyfriend not come with you?" Ophelia nodded bitterly. As soon as she left the jewelry store, a friend called to tell her that Ethan had acute gastritis from drinking and was in terrible pain. Worried sick, she said she would go pick him up immediately. Just as Ophelia was rushing there, a burst of laughter came from the phone, followed by her friend's teasing, "See, I told you she'd put you first no matter what. She's just like a loyal lapdog." The friend suddenly realized the call was still connected and hung up in a panic. Listening to the busy tone, Ophelia froze in place. She wondered how many times her friends had made fun of her genuine love for Ethan, and how many times Ethan had failed to stop their childish pranks, allowing others to use her as a laughingstock. It was during this moment of distraction that an out-of-control car suddenly rushed out from diagonally behind her and hit Ophelia head-on. The hospital room fell silent again. Ophelia looked silently at the two rings, nestled closely together on the bedside table, and summoned the system. "When is the earliest I can leave this world?" "1 month from now," Ophelia nodded. No one knew that she was a strategy agent. She needed to complete the conquest of Ethan Price's heart within 10 years. Once the time limit was exceeded, she would be forcibly erased from the world. When she was 14, Ophelia accepted the identity arranged by the system and was fostered in the Price family home. Young Ethan, due to his mother's early death and his father's neglect, was extremely starved of love. He was withdrawn and rejected Ophelia's arrival fiercely. On the first day they met, Ethan smashed a glass cup against Ophelia's head, screaming for her to get out of his house. But Ophelia just quietly wiped the blood seeping from her forehead, calmly picked up the glass shards, took Ethan's hand, and asked gently, "Did you cut your hand?" Ethan, who was rarely treated with gentleness, froze on the spot. His father had no time for him, but would arrange many playmates of the same age. Without exception, they were all chased away by Ethan using extremely vicious methods. But why didn't Ophelia care about his overflowing malice? Ophelia observed the change in Ethan's expression, took off the necklace from her neck at the right moment, and handed it to him. "A meeting gift. I hope you like it." She looked at Ethan's slightly reddened eyes, stood on tiptoe, and gently hugged him. "Big E, I won't take away Uncle Richard's love for you. I came here for you. From now on, no matter when, you will never be alone again. For the first time, Ethan accepted a companion arranged by his father. At first, Ethan would use childish methods to test Ophelia, putting bugs in her food, mixing mud into her shampoo, and even cutting her dress to make a fool of her in public. But Ophelia never got angry once. She just told him gently and firmly, time and time again, that she would not leave. And Ethan was moved by their time together. He got used to Ophelia's company, became less cold and withdrawn, started sharing daily news with her, told her his little secrets, and opened his heart to her. Halfway through the mission, the system asked Ophelia if she wanted to stay in this world or return to her original world after completing the task. Although she approached Ethan with a purpose, she had treated him with sincerity from start to finish, so she chose to stay without hesitation. Until a year ago, out of kindness, Ophelia sponsored a financially struggling female college student named Daisy Chase, arranged a job for her in the company, and treated her like a sister. Daisy said she would spend her whole life repaying the kindness, but within a few days of joining the company, she started making eyes at Ethan. It was from this time that Ophelia's strategy progress fluctuated back and forth, unable to reach completion. Ophelia spent 10 years raising Ethan into a decent man, but because of Daisy's comment that men who smoke are charming, he started smoking again. He even fought people for her, risked his life drag racing for her, and suppressed any company whose young heir showed interest in Daisy. Many mutual friends felt that after 10 years, Ethan was tired of Ophelia, and now Daisy was the one he cherished. Ethan thought he hid these things well, but Ophelia saw it all. She just didn't point it out and continued to treat Ethan as before. Until the time ran out, the mission failed, and Ethan never gave Ophelia his whole heart. Ophelia picked up the rings, gently stroking the contours of the mountains and seas engraved on them. The original intention of designing these rings was Ethan's promise to her that they would see all the mountains and seas in the world together. It was a pity she couldn't wait for the promise to be fulfilled. Ethan had changed, and it was time for her to leave. Her phone dinged. Daisy sent her a video. Ethan was lying drunkenly on Daisy's lap, dazedly holding her hand and kissing her fingertips lightly. "I like you the most. Don't leave me, okay?" Ophelia watched the video with calm, ripple-less eyes, then turned off the screen and tossed the phone aside. She had said she would sponsor Daisy properly. Living expenses and a job had all been arranged for Daisy. If Daisy also wanted a man, Ophelia didn't mind giving Ethan away. After all, she never liked used goods. Ophelia was sleeping soundly when a loud noise woke her up. Opening her eyes, she saw Ethan rushing into the hospital room in a panic, knocking over the medicines on the shelf. "Leah, are you okay?" He leaned against the hospital bed, holding Ophelia's hand tightly, his eyes red. "We agreed to face everything together. Why didn't you tell me you were in a car accident?" Ethan seemed genuinely worried about Ophelia's injuries. He hadn't even straightened his clothes before rushing to the hospital, and his open collar revealed ambiguous red marks on his neck. Ophelia looked calm, but deep disgust was hidden in her eyes. She didn't answer Ethan but asked, "What were you doing last night?" A trace of unnaturalness flashed across Ethan's face. There was a problem with a project's capital chain. The situation was tense, and I had to rush over to handle it. "Leah, you understand, right?" Ophelia gave a faint mm. "It's okay. Work is important." She already knew from the system that yesterday was Daisy's first dance performance. Ethan threw a celebration party for her, and they were intimate all night. Looking at Ophelia's calm face, Ethan couldn't help but feel nervous. He felt Ophelia's attitude was a bit cold. Did she know about his relationship with Daisy? Thinking this, Ethan tentatively asked, "By the way, did you pick up the rings?" Of course, she picked them up. However, Ophelia had already thrown them into the hospital toilet and flushed them away. Rings carrying false affection only made her feel nauseous. "I wasn't satisfied with them, so I asked them to take them back and remake them." Hearing this, the ominous premonition in Ethan's heart grew heavier. He had to do something so Ophelia wouldn't suspect him. The next second, Ethan actually knelt on one knee, took out another ring from his pocket, and looked at Ophelia sincerely. "Leah, although it's a bit hasty, I am sincere. I prepared this ring a long time ago, just for this moment. Will you marry me?" Ophelia glanced at him lukewarmly, her gaze falling on the ring. Suddenly, she laughed out loud. Yesterday, when she went to pick up the rings, she gave the counter Ethan's name, and they brought out 3 rings. 2 were for the 10th anniversary, and 1 was custom made for Daisy. Now, Ethan was actually using the ring prepared for another woman to propose to her. Truly laughable, but Ethan clearly misunderstood Ophelia's laugh. He thought Ophelia was happy and moved, so he immediately stepped forward and put the ring on her finger. "Leah, let's get married in a month, okay?" Ethan looked eager, seeming very worried that Ophelia would leave him. But in a month, wasn't that exactly when she would leave this world? Ophelia knew Ethan well. If she refused now, Ethan would inevitably pester her endlessly, giving her no peace in her final days. So she nodded, the corners of her mouth curving into a perfect arc. "Okay." Ethan froze, then let out a sigh of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted, pulling Ophelia tightly into his arms. "Leah, we finally have a result." Ophelia's hands hung by her sides, she didn't hug him back. "I'm a little tired." Hearing Ophelia's intention to send him away, Ethan paused. "Then sleep peacefully. I'll stay here and keep you calm." Ethan's words were interrupted by a phone notification. He glanced at the screen and immediately changed his tune. "There are things to deal with at the company. I'll come back to accompany you later, okay?" Ophelia pretended not to see the photo of legs Daisy sent him and looked peaceful. "My injury isn't serious. Go busy yourself with company matters first." "Leah, don't always be so sensible. You can be clingy with me. I'd love nothing more." Ethan kissed Ophelia on the forehead and left in a hurry. As soon as the door closed, Ophelia pulled out several wet wipes and scrubbed the forehead Ethan had kissed fiercely, until the skin turned red and stung slightly before stopping. The person she was once closest to now only made her feel sick. Ophelia completed the discharge procedures and exchanged system points for an item to heal her injuries, so she was mostly recovered. She returned to the villa and found a pair of strange high heels at the door. "Leah," Ethan's voice came from the 2nd floor. He ran downstairs somewhat flustered, glanced at the red high heels, and tried to cover it up. "Those heels were meant to be your discharge gift. I didn't expect you back so early. I haven't had time to put them in a gift box yet." Ophelia was silent for a moment, then looked up at him with a faint smile. "Really? But this pair seems to be a size too big." "What?" Ethan feigned surprise. "I bought them according to your size. The clerk must have packed the wrong ones. I'll take them back and exchange them another day." "All right, you just got out of the hospital. You should go back to your room and rest well first." After saying that, Ethan pushed Ophelia back to the bedroom. She heard the front door on the 1st floor open and then close again. No need to guess. Daisy, who had come to the villa for a tryst with Ethan, had quietly left. Was he that impatient? Knowing she would be discharged and coming home today, Ethan still dared to bring someone home. But Ethan didn't notice the mockery in Ophelia's eyes, thinking he had deceived her once again. He lifted Ophelia onto the bed and gently massaged her left leg. "Will it affect your dancing? Will there be any lasting effects?" Ophelia was impatient with Ethan's fake concern. She shook her head. "It won't affect it. It's recovering well." "That's good." Ethan covered her with the quilt. "Leah, I have an important meeting tomorrow and can't be with you. Stay home and be good. Call me if you need anything." "What a coincidence." Ophelia smiled in surprise. "I won't be home tomorrow either. Daisy invited me to her birthday party." As soon as this was said, Ethan stiffened, obviously not expecting Daisy to have the guts to invite both of them. Ophelia sneered internally, but pretended not to know anything on the surface. "What's wrong?" His expression was awkward. Daisy invited me too." Ophelia asked casually, "Are you going then?" Ethan looked nervous, a thin layer of cold sweat on his forehead. "I might not have time." "Ah," Ophelia sounded regretful. "I wanted to go with you." "Oh well, really?" Ethan's face lit up with joy. "If you want me to accompany you, then I will definitely be there." Ophelia smiled. If the two of them wanted to have a secret affair so badly, why shouldn't she help them along? The next day, Ophelia went straight from the dance studio to the venue where Daisy was holding her birthday party. Daisy had just graduated. Her university experience wasn't outstanding. She only got an internship at Price Corp thanks to Ophelia's connections. She occasionally performed in low-tier stage plays, and her income wasn't significant. But now, she was covered in designer luxury brands from head to toe. Clothes, shoes, necklaces, earrings, rings. Her outfit was worth nearly $10 million. Daisy's college classmates looked envious. Daisy, your boyfriend treats you so well. When will you bring him for us to meet? Everyone knew Daisy had a wealthy boyfriend, and she often posted photos of the two of them on social media, just never showing his face. Daisy smiled shyly. She glanced pointedly at Ophelia. When the relationship is stable, I will definitely bring him to meet everyone. People arrived one after another. Perhaps to avoid suspicion, Ethan arrived last. When he entered the room, Daisy had just blown out the candles and suggested everyone play with the cake cream. What's fun about just smearing cream? It's exciting with the lights off, someone chimed in, and with a click, the lights went out. Everyone quickly cheered, dipping into clumps of cream and attacking indiscriminately, tirelessly. The sweet smell quickly filled the room. Someone bumped into Ophelia during the chase. She was squeezed against the floor-to-ceiling window and keenly heard the sound of kissing nearby. Borrowing the moonlight, Ophelia looked coldly toward the corner. Ethan was impatiently pressing Daisy against the wall, kissing her deeply. Half of his hand had already explored under the hem of her clothes, as if they would ignite with passion in this dark room the very next second. Ophelia said nothing. She just picked up her phone, took a clear video of the scene, and walked to a different spot. After an unknown amount of time, the cream on the cake was exhausted, and someone turned on the lights. Ethan, entangled in the corner, was startled by the sudden light. He quickly let go of Daisy in his arms and instinctively looked for Ophelia. Finding her sitting far away on the opposite sofa drinking wine, Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. "Daisy, how come there isn't a speck of cream on you?" A girl noticed Daisy. Apart from her, everyone in the room had some cream on them, looking messy and funny. But Daisy's dress was only slightly wrinkled. She was still clean. "You're the birthday girl. How can you not have some of your own cake's cream on you?" The girl laughingly dotted a bit of cream on the tip of Daisy's nose. Daisy still had a lingering blush on her face. She looked shyly at Ethan. "It's because Big E protected me in his arms, just now, that I didn't get smeared." As soon as these words came out, everyone fell into an awkward silence for a moment, invariably looking at Ophelia. Compared to Daisy, she looked much messier. There was cream even in her hair, and her forearm had been bumped and was red and swollen, looking particularly conspicuous. Seeing her state, Ethan immediately felt extremely guilty. He ran to her in a panic. "Leah, I'm sorry. You and Daisy have similar figures. I mistook her for you after the lights went out." Ophelia looked up at him indifferently. Before she could speak, Daisy helped explain, "Sis Ophelia, Big E really mistook me. Just now he was holding me and calling out Leah." Ethan stared at Ophelia, his eyes red with anxiety. "Leah, believe me, what I said is true. We are already engaged. How could I be thinking of other women?" Face to face at such close range, Ophelia could clearly see the lipstick stained on Ethan's lips, but she didn't point it out. She just smiled ambiguously. "It was pitch black, mistaking people is normal. I won't blame you for such a small thing." Receiving Ophelia's forgiveness, Ethan immediately hugged her tightly. "Leah, I only have you in my heart. Please never leave me." Feeling Ethan's slightly trembling body, Ophelia suddenly couldn't understand him. His panic and nervousness didn't seem fake. He was genuinely afraid of losing her. But if that was the case, why repeatedly flirt with Daisy and be unfaithful? Sensing a hint of strangeness and scrutiny in Ophelia's gaze, Ethan suddenly felt as if his heart had been gouged dozens of times by a small knife. Even breathing became difficult. He realized he shouldn't stay in the same room as Daisy anymore. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to control himself and would do something to betray Ophelia again. Thinking of this, Ethan decisively took Ophelia's hand and bid farewell to everyone. "Leah just got out of the hospital and needs rest. We won't stay longer." Walking to the door, Ophelia glanced at the mirror and saw Daisy staring at her with eyes full of jealousy. The moment their eyes met, Daisy was surprised and quickly looked away, very uncomfortable. Ophelia smiled. What was there to be jealous of? A scumbag like Ethan, if anyone wanted him, she would gladly hand him over. Thinking this, after returning home, Ophelia contacted a courier, carefully packed many of the things Ethan had given her, and asked the courier to send them to Daisy's house. Seeing this scene, Ethan panicked instantly. He stumbled down from the second floor and fell flat on his face in a wretched manner. He didn't dare to stop, scrambling up and snatching the box back from the courier's hands, his eyes full of shock. "Leah, these are all gifts I gave you. What are you doing with them?" Ophelia's gaze was clear and calm. I have too much jewelry to wear. It's just collecting dust sitting there, so I plan to give it to the student I sponsor. Ethan knew that Ophelia had indeed been sponsoring students all these years, and he sighed in relief. His gaze softened. Leah, I just love your generosity and kindness. He allowed the courier to take the box of jewelry, though his face still looked a bit aggrieved. I thought you were still angry with me about the birthday party, so you were throwing these jewels away in a fit of pique. Leah, trust me, that really was just a misunderstanding. Ophelia smiled indifferently. I'm not that petty. Giving these jewels to someone else, and Ethan still praised her generosity. If Ethan knew that Ophelia planned to give him away to someone else too, how would he feel? For the past 2 days, every time Ophelia opened her phone, she was bombarded with promotional videos for a stage play. The lead actress of this play was Daisy Chase. Ophelia knew very well that Ethan was pulling strings behind the scenes to promote her and pave the way for her career. But Ophelia knew exactly how much skill Daisy actually possessed. She hadn't spent much time practicing in the studio, always slacking off. With her dancing foundation and skills, even if she got the lead role through connections, she could never perform it perfectly. Going all out with online promotion, now wouldn't she just end up slapping her own face later? Ophelia received 2 VIP tickets sent by Daisy. Since her days were numbered anyway and she had nothing better to do, she went to the theater with Ethan. As soon as Ophelia sat down, Daisy ran out from backstage in a hurry. Sis Ophelia, I can't find my dance shoes. Can I borrow yours? Ophelia had performed at this theater a month ago and still had a pair of dance shoes left in the rehearsal room. She nodded, but Daisy continued, I still have to get my makeup and styling done and can't step away. Could you get them for me? Ophelia didn't refuse. After giving the shoes to Daisy, she returned to her seat, only to find that Ethan beside her had disappeared. It wasn't until the play was about to start that Ethan came out from backstage. The shirt he had meticulously arranged before leaving the house was a bit messy, and his earlobes were faintly red. Before Ophelia could speak, Ethan explained first, I wanted to go with you to get the shoes, but there were too many rooms backstage. I couldn't find you and got lost. Ophelia glanced at him faintly, a hint of mockery flashing in her eyes. Not only did you get lost, but you also lost your jacket? Ethan's face turned pale. He realized he had left his suit jacket with Daisy. Just as he was anxiously wondering how to explain, the lights in the theater suddenly dimmed, and the curtains slowly opened. Ophelia stopped looking at him and turned her head to watch the stage, appearing not to intend to investigate further. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. He told himself inwardly to be more careful next time and not let Ophelia see any clues. A beam of white light converged on the center of the stage. Daisy appeared under the light wearing a white dress. The noisy theater instantly quieted down, but a few dozen seconds later, the audience's murmurs started up again. These dance steps look so strange. Did she really practice properly? I heard she has a rich second-generation boyfriend. Maybe she bought the lead role with money. More and more viewers complained, and some even shouted for a refund on the spot. But just then, someone sharp-eyed noticed an anomaly. Look, why have her shoes turned red? No, the hem of her dress is red too. As soon as the words fell, Daisy, standing at the edge of the stage, completely lost her balance. Screaming, she fell off the stage. The scene fell into chaos, and security immediately turned on the lights to maintain order. However, everyone clearly saw that shards of glass spilled out of the fallen dance shoes. Daisy's face was deathly pale, the soles of her feet were covered in cuts, and blood was flowing endlessly. Ethan's pupils shrank. Ignoring Ophelia beside him, he instantly rushed up and picked Daisy up. Daisy, are you okay? Daisy shrank into Ethan's arms in a daze. After a few seconds, 2 lines of clear tears fell, and she looked at Ophelia with resentment. Ophelia Quinn, I always treated you like a real sister. Why did you give me shoes filled with glass shards and ruin my performance? Ethan's body trembled, and he looked over in disbelief. Leah, did you do this? Ophelia had already seen through Daisy's self-directed drama. But seeing Ethan's nervous state, no matter how she explained, the scales in Ethan's heart would tip toward Daisy. So she just asked expressionlessly, if I say no, will you believe me? Ethan, since when are you and Daisy so close? Ethan's face instantly became extremely ugly. My feet hurt so much," Daisy whimpered. The distress in Ethan's eyes was about to overflow. He didn't explain anything more to Ophelia and immediately carried Daisy to the hospital. Passing by, Ophelia was knocked to the ground. Her elbow hit the glass shards scattered on the floor. She gasped in pain instantly. She struggled to stand up again and looked at the retreating backs of the two. Daisy was wrapping her arms around Ethan's neck. Over his shoulder, she revealed a provocative smile at Ophelia. She moved her lips silently. "You lose." Whether someone was pushing it from the shadows or not, the video of Daisy's performance accident quickly spread across the internet, causing much speculation. After all, with that much broken glass, it obviously couldn't have fallen into the shoes unintentionally. It wasn't until several internet users claiming to be insiders said they saw Ophelia putting glass shards into the dance shoes with their own eyes that malicious comments targeting Ophelia came flooding in. They claimed she was jealous because an outstanding junior took her lead role and wanted to ruin Daisy's dance career. Ophelia read a few comments but didn't get angry. Anyway, she would be leaving here soon. She didn't care how the people here discussed her, nor did she want to waste effort proving her innocence. She just wanted to spend these last few days quietly. But Daisy actually came looking for her on her own initiative. Ethan had given her the key to the villa. She opened the door and walked in proudly, looking down at Ophelia leaning on the sofa, as if she were the mistress of the house. "Ophelia, do you know what Ethan is doing right now?" Ophelia looked indifferent, as if she didn't care at all about what Daisy wanted to do. But it was precisely this indifferent look that drove Daisy crazy. "Do you know where those bots online came from? Ethan personally ordered people to find them, saying he wanted to vent his anger for me. Ophelia, he doesn't love you at all. Why do you shamefully refuse to leave?" Hearing this, Ophelia finally looked up, her tone calm. "I will leave in a few days. If you like him, you can move in." Ophelia was stating a fact, but to Daisy's ears, it sounded like a taunt. "You've fallen to this state, yet you still have the mood to mock me. Listen carefully to who Eth actually loves." Saying that, she dialed Ethan's number and put it on speaker for Ophelia to hear. "Eth, I've thought about it carefully. This matter isn't Sis Ophelia's fault. Are we going too far?" "Daisy, you are just too kind," Ethan said. "She already has such great achievements in the dance world. A stage play won't affect her much, but it can bring you a lot of popularity. Don't you understand?" Daisy looked at Ophelia triumphantly and continued, "Eth, thank you. I promised I would thank you properly. Tonight, I'll wear those outfits you've always wanted to see, okay?" Ethan was silent for a few seconds. When he spoke again, his voice was tinged with urgency. "I've finished my work. You can come to my office right now." "The sofa in the office is too cramped," Daisy cooed softly. "Today, I want to enter the room you share with Sis Ophelia, okay?" Ethan struggled internally, probably for a moment, before saying after a pause, "Okay." After Daisy hung up, Ophelia immediately received a text from Ethan. "Leah, there's a charity auction tonight. I can't get away because of work. Can you attend for me? If there's anything you like, bid whatever you want." Ophelia paused, then replied, "Okay." She remembered when she was very young, Richard Price hired a nanny for the two of them, but Ethan chased her away. She asked Ethan why. Ethan said this villa was a home belonging exclusively to the two of them, and he didn't want anyone else living here. But now, Ethan repeatedly brought another woman home and engaged in the most intimate acts in their bedroom. Seeing Ophelia fall silent, Daisy laughed complacently. But before she could utter any sarcasm, Ophelia threw a key at her. "The key to the basement. All the things Ethan gave me are in there. The ruby engagement necklace is there too." She picked up her bag and walked out. "Pick whatever you like. The things are yours and Ethan is yours too." Ophelia left the villa, her figure gradually merging into the night. Soon, Ethan returned. As soon as he pushed open the door, he impatiently embraced and kissed Daisy. Not long after Ethan sent Daisy away, Ophelia returned, as if she had timed it perfectly. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he didn't indulge Daisy in staying overnight in the end. Otherwise, Ophelia would have discovered them. Looking at Ophelia's thin face and thinking she had been kept in the dark, Ethan suddenly found a conscience and felt some guilt. He gently hugged Ophelia, his tone gentle. "Leah, I still can't believe we're getting married in a few days. I can't imagine what I would have become if I hadn't met you 10 years ago. I swear, I will make you the happiest woman in the world. He thought these words would move Ophelia deeply. But Ophelia had absolutely no reaction. She asked faintly, "Are you done?" Ethan, immersed in his own emotional performance, froze. Why was Ophelia so cold to him? But before he could come up with an answer, Ophelia had already walked upstairs and entered the guest bedroom. She seemed to have guessed that Ethan would ask her why she wasn't sleeping in the master bedroom, explaining, "I have a cold. Let's sleep in separate rooms for a few days." She found the room Daisy had slept in dirty. She found Ethan even dirtier. Ethan's heart tightened instantly. He nervously scanned the room, only relaxing after confirming that no traces of Daisy remained. Ophelia probably really just had a cold, and that's why she wasn't sleeping in the same room as him. Perhaps out of guilt towards Ophelia, Ethan refused Daisy's active invitations for the next few days, right up until the wedding day. Ethan changed into his wedding suit. Looking at the various blessings received on his phone, he couldn't help but feel jubilant. He had waited for this day for too long. Ethan wanted to ask how Ophelia's preparations were going, but instead received several photos from Daisy. Just one glance, and his mind couldn't help but wander. "Eth, after today you'll be someone else's husband. Before that, are you sure you don't want to let loose with me one more time? Sis Ophelia hasn't arrived yet. I'm waiting for you in the dressing room." Ethan struggled for a moment, but only for a moment. He rushed to the dressing room anxiously, only to find Daisy wearing Ophelia's haute couture wedding dress. He frowned, his tone displeased. "This is Leah's," but when he saw Daisy's reddened eyes, the words of blame couldn't leave his mouth. Daisy hugged his waist tightly. "Eth, I know it's wrong for me to be like this, but I like you too much. I'm just fantasizing about marrying you. I won't ruin this dress. I promise Sis Ophelia won't notice anything unusual later. Don't blame me, okay?" Daisy looked at him, tears shimmering in her eyes. Ethan's heart softened. He kissed her lips, sinking into it. But he didn't know that Ophelia was already standing outside the door. Watching the two in the room about to ignite a fire, she picked up her phone and sent a message to Ethan. "What are you doing?" Ethan gasped for breath, glanced at his phone, and lust conquered his reason. He stuffed the phone into Daisy's hand. "Baby, reply for me. I just finished changing into my wedding suit, just waiting for you to arrive." Ophelia curved her lips, a mocking arc rising, and kindly closed the door tight for them. She moved her fingers and sent the final message. "Ethan, let's break up." Passion was thick inside the room. Outside the room, Ophelia looked at the system prompt to leave the world and tapped confirm without hesitation, vanishing instantly from the spot. But her phone crashed to the ground with a bang. Ethan hadn't had time to read the message before being startled by the noise outside. The ambiguous atmosphere dissipated instantly. He hurriedly adjusted his clothes, hid Daisy behind the curtains, and pushed open the door with an annoyed look. "Who is it?" The next instant, his eyes widened abruptly. Ethan reached out a trembling hand and picked up the phone lying on the ground. Ethan recognized immediately that this was Ophelia's phone, because inside the phone case was a photo of the two of them together. It was a picture of him carrying Ophelia on his back, running down an empty street, both of them laughing happily. He was dazed for a moment. It seemed like a long time since he had seen Ophelia smile like that. When did it start? "Eth, what's wrong?" Daisy had changed back into her regular clothes. She hadn't noticed Ethan's low pressure yet. She hugged Ethan from behind and coaxed in a low voice. "The wedding is starting soon. We have to hurry." But as soon as her hands touched Ethan, he shuddered violently and immediately pushed Daisy away. "Don't touch me," Ethan looked terrible. "Leah was outside just now. She must know everything about us." He ignored Daisy's instantly pale face and eagerly tried to check Ophelia's phone, only to find that his fingerprint had been deleted. He entered his birthday with trembling hands, only to get a password incorrect prompt. It felt like a giant boulder had crashed down, crushing the breath out of Ethan. How can this be? We agreed to have no secrets between us. How could she change the password? Ethan suddenly choked. He remembered he had said his phone would have no secrets from Ophelia and she could check it any time. At first, Ophelia would occasionally check his chat apps, but later she never looked again. Ethan thought he had completely gained her trust and became bolder outside. But actually, Ophelia had known for a long time that he had more than one phone, hadn't she? Deep regret washed over him. Ethan's throat felt blocked, unable to speak. Unwilling to give up, he tried every anniversary between them, but the screen only displayed a cold, password incorrect. "Leah, where are you?" "The wedding is starting immediately. Come out and see me, okay?" Ethan thought Ophelia was hiding, not wanting to see him, but he searched every room with red eyes and found no trace of Ophelia. He asked dozens of people, and they all said they hadn't seen her. She's a living person. How could she vanish into thin air? She must still be here. Ethan suddenly gripped Daisy's shoulder tightly, pinching her until she teared up from the pain. "Don't just stand there, help me find her." Daisy, seeing Ethan's lost soul state, felt a surge of jealousy. "Calm down first. Maybe." Daisy reached out again, wanting to hug Ethan. "Get out." The tenderness from moments ago was gone. Ethan pushed Daisy away viciously. "I was about to marry Leah. Why did you have to come find me at this exact time? Did you do this on purpose, just to drive Leah away?" Daisy fell to the ground, just like Ophelia had been knocked into the glass shards by Ethan a few days ago. "I didn't, you misunderstood." Daisy shed a few more tears, but Ethan didn't care about her anymore. He walked out without looking back. He saw the wedding staff taking down the decorations. Without thinking, he rushed up, eyes bloodshot, and roared, "Stop, did I say you could take them down?" The staff were frightened by Ethan's crazy appearance and said timidly, "It was Miss Quinn who ordered the takedown. She said the wedding is canceled, and she even paid the breach of contract fee." "Impossible." Ethan collapsed to the ground, despondent. He forced himself to calm down, first finding someone to crack Ophelia's phone password, then contacting people to retrieve surveillance footage of the wedding venue and nearby streets, praying over and over in his heart to find Ophelia quickly. The people were efficient. As soon as Ethan got home, the unlocked phone was delivered. "Mr. Price, here is the phone. Please contact me if you need anything else." The door closed. Ethan flipped through Ophelia's phone, and his face instantly turned deathly pale. He stood motionless on the spot like a puppet with its strings cut. At the top of WeChat lay a chat with Daisy Chase, coldly displaying the sentence, "Ethan is yours, I don't want him anymore." Ethan's hands shook uncontrollably. He tapped several times before managing to open the chat interface. "Do you believe that even if today is the day he marries you, Ethan will accompany me first? Your wedding dress is so beautiful. Lend it to me to wear." Who do you think Ethan likes seeing in a wedding dress more, you or me? Scrolling up, there were countless provocative and vicious words, along with photos Daisy secretly took and sent to Ophelia after their trysts. He then opened Ophelia's photo album and discovered to his shock that Ophelia had taken photos of many of his secret meetings with Daisy, including the birthday party when he kissed Daisy while the lights were out. So, had he been betraying her right in front of her face? It turned out Ophelia had known all along about his messing around with Daisy this past year. Anger, regret, complex emotions lingered in his heart. Ethan lowered his head silently, hands clenched tight, nails digging deep into his palms, as if feeling guilt for his actions. He took a few deep breaths, about to find Daisy to settle the score, when he received the surveillance footage he had requested. "We haven't found any trace of Miss Quinn in today's footage yet. We have retrieved footage of places Miss Quinn visited recently. You can check if she went to these places again." Ethan grabbed at this lifeline and immediately watched the footage at double speed. Skipping over itineraries he already knew, Ethan stared intently at the video of Ophelia coming out of the ring shop a month ago. He knew she had a car accident that day, but hadn't asked for details yet. Ethan gazed lovingly at Ophelia on the screen. Immediately after, he saw Ophelia answer a phone call, run anxiously, and then stop abruptly as if hearing something. In that moment, a car rushed out of control and hit Ophelia's left leg. "No!" Through the screen, Ethan shouted in despair, wishing he was the one hit. His vision blurred, tears pattering onto the screen. Ethan covered his eyes, unable to bear watching Ophelia knocked to the ground in the video. He remembered clearly. The reason he deliberately broke his promise and didn't go pick up the commemorative rings with Ophelia that day was to throw a celebration party for Daisy. Some friends teased him, asking what he would do if Ophelia found out he was treating Daisy so openly well and left him. Probably because he drank too much, Ethan said decisively that Ophelia had been obediently by his side for 10 years, had only him in her heart, and would absolutely never leave. His friends didn't believe him and said they would test Ophelia for him. And then, there was that phone call lying to Ophelia that he had gastritis. So it was because of this joke that she got distracted and had the car accident. Ophelia was so good to him. How many bastard things had he done in the past year? Ethan wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes and looked at the driver who ran out of the car to help Ophelia in the surveillance video. He suddenly felt the person looked familiar. But before Ethan could think carefully, Daisy pushed open the door and called out timidly, "Eth." Ethan looked at her with disgust, his gaze drawn to the ruby necklace she was wearing. He asked in disbelief, "That's the necklace I gave Leah when I confessed my love. Why is it with you?" Daisy cleverly put on various jewelry Ophelia had given her, thinking that imitating her dress and style would make Ethan think of Ophelia and ignore her malicious provocations. But when Ethan thought of the harm brought to Ophelia because of her, the anger and regret in his heart were hard to quell, and he couldn't forgive her. His face darkened, and as he reached out to tear the necklace off Daisy, she cried out, "Eth, I'm pregnant." When Ophelia left the world, the system wiped away all her feelings for Ethan. After resting in her original world for a few days, she received another strategy mission. Ophelia wanted to refuse, but the system said the target this time had silently loved her for 10 years, making it a very simple task. After thinking about it, she agreed. The strategy target was named Julian Jones. He had a similar childhood to Ethan. The difference was that he didn't get Ophelia's redemption when he was young, so his withdrawn and cold personality continued to this day. After confirming the mission, Ophelia opened her eyes and appeared in a hospital in North City. Following the system's guidance, she knocked on the door of a VIP ward. A middle-aged man opened the door. Seeing a stranger, he quickly waved his hand for Ophelia to leave. "Mr. Jones isn't seeing anyone. Whether it's business or personal, please go back." Julian Jones, Ophelia called his name. Since the system said he had loved her for 7 years, he should recognize her voice. Sure enough, a rustling sound came from the hospital bed, and Julian's voice was very weak. "Secretary Lewis, let her in." A flash of surprise crossed Secretary Lewis's eyes. He said yes and tactfully left the room, closing the door. Ophelia looked Julian up and down. He was thin and haggard, with bandages wrapped around his forearm. Before coming, she asked the nurse and learned that Julian had severe self-destructive tendencies. This time, he was forcibly sent to the hospital after carving more than a dozen bloody gashes on his arm. But such a person, upon seeing her, actually lit up with a spark in his eyes. "We went to the same elementary school. You saved me 10 years ago." Julian was a bit urgent, afraid Ophelia had forgotten him. "I was being forcibly taken into a car by traffickers. You sensed something was wrong and called the police to save me." Ophelia nodded. "I remember." She pointed to the wheelchair. "Want to go out and get some sun? I'll accompany you." She needed time to slowly explore Julian's heart and figure out why he repeatedly hurt himself. Julian was flattered and nodded repeatedly. "Okay." Ophelia helped Julian into the wheelchair and draped a small blanket over him. Seeing the tips of his ears turn slightly red, she couldn't help but smile. They went out together. Seeing them talking and laughing, Secretary Lewis dropped his jaw. In his impression, Julian was always cold as an iceberg and never got close to anyone. Ophelia was the only exception. At the same time, Ethan and Daisy were in the same hospital. Daisy had just finished her pregnancy checkup. Ethan originally wanted her to abort the child, but she said that no matter how big a mistake she made, the child was innocent. Ethan suddenly thought of himself, neglected by his father as a child. He had wanted a child long ago. He told himself he must become a good father, let his child grow up in love, and have a happy childhood. The one in Daisy's belly was his first child. Ethan thought about it again and again, but couldn't harden his heart. He let Daisy hold his arm, but his heart was thinking of Ophelia. 10 days had passed. He had run to all the places they had been to and watched all the surveillance footage, finding no trace of Ophelia. It was as if she had evaporated overnight. The persistent low mood made him exhausted. So, when he saw that back that resembled Ophelia so much, he almost suspected he was hallucinating. Until she turned sideways to let someone pass, and Ethan saw her face clearly, confirming it was Ophelia. Ethan lost control instantly, terrified Ophelia would disappear suddenly again, and stumbled running towards her. Hearing Ethan's shout, Ophelia had no intention of stopping. Ethan then saw that Ophelia was pushing another stranger. Did Ophelia leave because of him? "Leah, I've been looking for you. Where have you been these past days?" Jealousy surged in Ethan's heart. He ran up and grabbed Ophelia's arm tightly. She paused, turned around slowly, her face cold and full of disgust. "If I remember correctly, I sent a message telling you we broke up, right? Since that's the case, do I need to report to you where I go?" Ethan squeezed his hands hard, suppressing the emotions surging in his heart. He spoke with bitterness. "Leah, blame me for being momentarily obsessed. I will definitely draw a clear line with Daisy Chase in the future. Just forgive me this once, okay? Here is your phone, returning it to you. I still kept the wedding venue. Let's pick a good day to get married, okay?" "Who is he?" Julian suddenly grabbed Ophelia's hand. Unlike his gentle and careful posture just now, his gaze swept over Ethan cold as ice. Ethan looked at their touching hands and gritted his teeth. "Don't touch her," but Julian didn't listen. He looked at Ophelia. "Can I hold your hand?" Ophelia nodded with a laugh. Ignoring the ugly look on Ethan's face, she pushed Julian toward the park, answering his question. "I used to be with Ethan, but now we have nothing to do with each other." "Leah, how could we have nothing to do with each other?" Ethan chased after them unwillingly, grabbing Ophelia's hand forcefully, the corners of his eyes red. "You are still wearing the ring I proposed with. You can't let go of me in your heart either, right?" Reminded by Ethan, Ophelia remembered this matter. Her tone was peaceful. "Ethan, since I was a child, I never wanted things used by others. This ring wasn't prepared for me anyway. It was to make Daisy happy, wasn't it?" Ethan didn't expect Ophelia to know even this. Under his stunned gaze, Ophelia took off the engagement ring and threw it into the lawn like trash. "Don't throw it," Ethan couldn't stop it. Ophelia pushed Julian away and left. He chased the ring into the lawn, emotionally broken. When Daisy caught up, she only saw Ethan frantically rummaging around in a wretched state. There were many patients walking in the park. For a moment, many gazes converged on Ethan, and some people even whispered, discussing if this was a mental patient who had snuck out. Daisy suddenly felt a bit embarrassed. She hurried forward and pulled Ethan. Calm down. How do you want me to calm down? Didn't you see that man with Leah?" Looking at Ethan's frantic appearance, Daisy took a few deep breaths and soothed him. Sister Ophelia has never been with a man before. Now suddenly a man appears out of thin air. Don't you find it strange?" Ethan quickly understood her meaning. "You mean Leah deliberately found someone to act, trying to make me jealous?" Daisy nodded, seeing Ethan taking the bait. 10 years of feelings don't just disappear. Sister definitely still has you in her heart. But you absolutely cannot be too hasty in apologizing and staying, otherwise she will think you are cheap and easy to tease. The child in her belly was Daisy's only card. She was originally worried that Ophelia would take her position again after forgiving Ethan, causing her sleepless nights. Fortunately, Ophelia hadn't turned back yet. Now was exactly the time of Ethan's disappointment. She could totally take advantage of the void, occupy a place in Ethan's heart, and become the legitimate Mrs. Price. Ethan was also led by the nose by Daisy's words. He looked at the messy lawn and realized belatedly that his behavior of crawling on the ground looking for the ring just now was too degrading. Ophelia, whom he couldn't drive away no matter what when they were young, how could she actively leave him now? Ethan suddenly had confidence again. Before long, Ophelia would definitely come looking for him on her own. She would regret throwing away this ring. Calming down, Ethan hugged Daisy again. "I lost my composure. Luckily, I have you to remind me." If Ophelia wanted to find another man to make him jealous, he could naturally continue to be with Daisy. A look of successful plotting flashed across Daisy's eyes. Don't worry. Sister will definitely turn back." Julian said he didn't like the smell of the hospital, so Ophelia accompanied him home. The room hadn't been cleaned yet. A fruit knife lay on the floor, surrounded by dried, shocking bloodstains. Ophelia picked up the knife and looked at Julian, whose expression was evasive. "Why hurt yourself?" Julian pursed his lips, his voice very small. "Only then will someone care about me." Ophelia paused. Although she had vaguely guessed it, hearing Julian admit it personally still gave birth to some pity. They both grew up in North City, so Ophelia knew something about Julian. Julian's parents divorced when he was very young, each forming new families. Whenever they saw Julian, they were reminded of their days of endless quarreling, so neither side wanted to accept him. 5-year-old Julian was kicked back and forth like a ball. He felt parental love for a long time only when he was 7 years old, pushed down the stairs by a classmate, bleeding from the head. His parents only then went to the hospital to accompany him for a few days. Since then, whenever he craved his parents' company, he would deliberately hurt himself. Over time, his psychology became increasingly twisted and deformed. When I was young, I often saw you by Ethan's side, but he was ungrateful, so I always hated him. Julian's eyes became a little wet. He hugged Ophelia gently, his tone solemn. And I have always liked you. Ophelia patted his head. You have to understand, people who truly love you don't want you to hurt yourself. Julian opened his eyes slightly wide, warm tears rolling into Ophelia's neck. I didn't know, no one ever taught me. Suddenly, the system's voice sounded in Ophelia's mind. Detected that Julian Jones' favorability has reached 100. Strategy mission completed. Host can choose the time to leave the world. Now it was Ophelia's turn to be surprised. She hadn't done anything yet, and the strategy was completed so easily. Thinking of the 10 years spent conquering Ethan, only to fail in the end, Ophelia couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Sure enough, some people's hearts are destined never to be warmed. Ophelia looked at pale-faced Julian and finally realized how much this person liked her. At this moment, her phone rang with a message notification. Daisy sent a photo of a pregnancy test report. I'm pregnant with Ethan's child, and he intends for me to give birth to it. If you know what's good for you, don't come back and disturb our lives. Ophelia looked at it and couldn't help laughing. Laughing at Ethan's regretful look in the hospital today, and laughing at Daisy, the mistress, coming to warn the original partner. She replied, You two are indeed a perfect match, made for each other. Seeing the sarcasm on her face, Julian asked, What's wrong? Ophelia turned off her phone expressionlessly. Ethan's lover came to provoke me. Not long after, Daisy posted this pregnancy report on her social media moments. A bunch of friends offered congratulations, and many asked who her boyfriend actually was. Ophelia liked the post in passing, and Ethan immediately sent a message. Why did you like Daisy's post? Ophelia was stunned by Ethan's baffling message. Before she could reply, he withdrew it. If you come back now, I can make her abort the child. I can also forgive you for being with that man. Ophelia scoffed lightly, amused. What exactly did Ethan take himself for? But before she could say a few sarcastic words, Julian took the phone and sent a voice message to Ethan. She's very busy. Don't bother her with such trivial matters. After a pause, he added, Don't look for her for big matters either. She has nothing to do with you anymore. The phone was quiet for a few seconds. Moments later, it buzzed incessantly. Ophelia Quinn, it's so late, are you still with that man? Do you understand self-respect and self-love? Keeping yourself clean. There should be a limit, even if you want to make me jealous, I'll give you one last chance. Come home. Immediately, Julian looked at the messages sent by Ethan. Thinking of what Ethan had done to Ophelia, he instantly became angry. He sent back a few mocking remarks, blocked Ethan, and then returned the phone to Ophelia. Having done all this, Julian realized he seemed to have crossed a line. He looked at her carefully. Leah, you won't blame me for meddling, right? Ophelia detected a hint of innocent act in this tone and couldn't help smiling. I found him annoying anyway. Why would I blame you? Seeing Ophelia didn't care much about Ethan, Julian felt a bit more at ease. He only worried that Ophelia still had feelings for Ethan. Julian tentatively asked, Do you still plan to get married? Ophelia didn't expect Julian to suddenly mention this and looked astonished. Julian immediately changed the subject. Don't misunderstand, I'm just asking casually. People have been shoving women at me these past few years. I was thinking whether I should get married first to completely cut off their thoughts. Julian explained seriously. If Ophelia hadn't already known Julian's favorability score from the system, she might have been fooled by him. But Ophelia didn't want to beat around the bush. When her eyes met Julian's, she asked frankly, Do you want to marry me? Julian clearly hadn't expected Ophelia to ask him back. A flush quickly appeared on his face and he stammered, I'll listen to you. Ophelia was amused by his appearance. Then find someone to arrange it. She had returned to this world originally to marry Julian. She didn't expect Julian to deliver himself to her doorstep. Julian's face remained calm as he said goodnight and returned to his room unhurriedly. But as soon as he closed the door, he immediately ordered people to prepare for the wedding, terrified Ophelia would suddenly change her mind. Julian got his wish, but the atmosphere on Ethan's side was terrifyingly oppressive. His face was so dark it looked like water could drip from it. Looking at the red exclamation mark popping up on the screen, he clenched his phone and smashed it fiercely onto the ground. Daisy shuddered at Ethan's action. Before she could offer comfort, Ethan roared at her irritably. "Look at what kind of rotten idea you came up with. What? Don't be too hasty. Leah has moved into someone else's house now. Maybe Sister Ophelia is just playing hard to get." "Shut up," Ethan was furious, so Daisy shut her mouth, daring not to speak. Thinking that Ophelia might be with that man all night, Ethan could no longer sit still and immediately asked his assistant to check Julian's background. The investigation revealed something huge. For the past 2 years, Jingjin Company, founded abroad, had been constantly opposing the price group. There had been endless business wars, large and small. Ethan had always suspected he had offended someone, but because of cross-border inconveniences, he never found out who the actual controller of Jingjin was. He didn't expect it to be Julian Jones. Putting that aside, the assistant told him that just 2 hours ago, Julian had contacted many wedding planning companies, seemingly preparing for a wedding. "A wedding? With whom? Ophelia?" Ethan stood up abruptly. "No, I have to talk to Leah face to face. Jingjin has tripped up Price Group many times these past few years. Their methods are dirty. Julian definitely isn't a good person either. Leah must have been deceived by his sweet words." Ethan walked away quickly, but suddenly thought of something. He looked back at Daisy, a faint trace of pity in his eyes. "You should abort the child. If we have a child, Leah definitely won't forgive me." After speaking, Ethan left. Daisy stared at Ethan's back in disbelief, monstrous hatred flowing in her eyes. "Why?" She studied desperately, finally making it from that remote, poor small town to the big city. She spent so much effort to hook up with an heir of a wealthy family like Ethan. Why could Ophelia Quinn take away everything that belonged to her so easily? Daisy clenched the bed sheet tightly and dialed Richard Price's number. Because Ethan felt little fatherly love when he was young, father and son had been very distant since he grew up. Only when Ethan reported on the company situation did the two have a chance to say a few words. Richard Price was getting old. Whenever he woke up alone in the empty villa, he would be enveloped by endless loneliness. He always regretted neglecting Ethan in the past and wished incomparably for a child to see him off in his old age. So when Daisy went to him with her pregnant belly, he was overjoyed. "Ethan cares more about Sister Ophelia and wants me to abort this child, but it is a life after all. I really can't bear to." Daisy wiped away fake tears and choked with sobs. "I don't need a status. I just hope Uncle can help me save this child." "Of course," Richard quickly helped Daisy sit down. "Just rest assured and take care of the pregnancy here. I will have a good talk with Ethan. Since you are carrying my son's child, naturally I will acknowledge you as the daughter-in-law of the Price family. Don't worry." Ethan, struggling to find the ring, didn't know that Daisy and his father had already reached a consensus. Rain poured down. Only Ethan remained in the park, searching frantically all over the lawn, his expensive suit splattered with mud. But he didn't care, only hoping to find the ring quickly to beg for Ophelia's forgiveness. But Ethan searched the entire park without finding a trace of the ring. Just when he thought the ring had been picked up by someone else, his gaze was suddenly attracted by a fierce-looking big yellow dog. The big yellow dog was hiding in the pavilion, playing with a shiny object with its 2 front paws. One glance and Ethan was certain that was the ring he used to propose to Ophelia. Ethan bought a few sausages and threw them to the side. The big yellow dog's nose twitched, and it immediately ran to eat the sausages. He took the opportunity to pick up the ring and run, but he didn't expect the dog to be distracted again, barking and chasing him. But the rein was too heavy. Ethan slipped and fell. The big yellow dog rushed up and bit his arm. Ethan screamed in pain, attracting the attention of security. The security guard quickly helped him chase away the dog and kindly reminded Ethan, "That's a stray dog from nearby. It probably hasn't been vaccinated. You'd better go to the hospital for a checkup." Ethan shook his head with a bitter smile. Looking at the blood on his arm, he decided to go find Ophelia first. He couldn't let Ophelia marry Julian. Ethan dragged his exhausted body and rang the doorbell. Ophelia's voice came from inside. "Who is it?" Hearing her voice, Ethan's thoughts were instantly pulled back to a long time ago. He always forgot his keys when going out. Whenever he rang the doorbell, Ophelia would always ask, "Who is it?" before running to open the door. At that time, he would stand outside the door, listening to the sound of Ophelia's slippers pattering over. He couldn't help but curl his lips. As soon as the door opened, he would scoop Ophelia into his arms, smelling the fresh scent of her hair. Later, he met Daisy. The times he returned became later and later. Most of the time, Ophelia was already resting or unwilling to wait for him to come home anymore. At this moment, the door opened. Ophelia was wearing casual loungewear, her wet hair hanging on her shoulders, holding a towel in her hand, looking like she had just taken a shower. Ethan suddenly felt as if a lifetime had passed, as if he had returned to the past. But Ophelia's indifferent tone shattered his fantasy at this moment. "What are you doing here?" Since returning to this world, Ophelia hadn't given Ethan a pleasant look. It was one thing to look for her, but Ophelia didn't want Ethan to disturb Julian's life. So she didn't intend to catch up with Ethan and immediately went to close the door. But Ethan reacted faster. He quickly reached out his hand, which got jammed hard by the door, quickly swelling up red. He squeezed forward, half his body wedged in the doorway so Ophelia couldn't close it anymore. "Leah, I found the ring." He was soaked through, his right arm stained with blood, looking truly wretched and pitiful, but Ophelia was only slightly startled. And Ophelia's eyes were peaceful. "Go back and continue watching you and Daisy have your secret affair?" Ethan lowered his eyes. Thinking of all the past events, he actually didn't have the courage to look Ophelia in the eye. "Leah, I really know I was wrong this time. Give me a chance, okay? Everyone makes mistakes. Can you guarantee that Julian won't betray you in the future? I'll make Daisy abort the child and send her abroad. I won't let her disturb our lives again. I swear, as long as you forgive me, I'm willing to do anything." But Ophelia just gently shook her head. "Ethan, it's impossible between us." Ethan was still unwilling. He remembered that when he got hurt fighting in the past, Ophelia would always feel sorry for him. No matter what unreasonable request he made, she would agree to everything. So he tried the same trick again, rolling up his sleeve to reveal the wound bitten by the big yellow dog. "To find the ring, I was bitten by a dog. It hurts terribly. Leah, help me look at the wound, can you?" Ophelia didn't show the softness Ethan expected. She looked baffled. "If you're bitten by a dog, go find a doctor. Why find me?" Ethan froze on the spot instantly. Julian, seemingly spotting an opportunity, walked out at just this moment and hugged Ophelia from behind right in front of Ethan. "Leah!" Similarly, Julian rolled up his sleeve, revealing thin, dense cuts. "The wound accidentally touched water when I was showering. It hurts. How could you be so careless?" Completely different from facing Ethan, Ophelia frowned, looking at Julian reproachfully. "Don't move. I'll get the medicine to apply it again. If it still hurts, we'll go back to the hospital." Ophelia went into the room to find the first aid kit. Julian turned to look straight at Ethan, instantly covering him in a chill. "Bitten by a dog. Why didn't it bite you to death? Leah is about to marry me. Does the dignified air of the Price Group like being a homewrecker? Ethan, belated deep affection is cheaper than grass." Mocked so undisguisedly by his rival, a surge of anger rose steeply in Ethan's heart. He raised his fist to smash Julian. "What kind of thing are you? Leah is at most momentarily fresh with you." "Ethan," Ophelia shouted angrily, pulling Julian behind her. "How long are you going to keep making a scene? The wedding is cancelled. We broke up. What right do you have to interfere in my life now?" Even when Daisy provoked her so many times before, Ophelia never lost her temper once. The only time she yelled at him turned out to be for another man. Ethan was too bitter to speak. His phone screen lit up. Ethan looked at the call from Richard Price in surprise, instinctively thinking something big happened at the company. "Ethan, come back to the ancestral home. Regarding Daisy, we need to talk properly." Ophelia's phone rang at the same time. It was a call from her friend. "Leah, look quickly at the live stream I sent you. That female college student you sponsored before is actually saying she's going to expose your dark secrets." Daisy had planned this for a long time, but worried that Ethan would be angry, she hadn't dared to implement it. However, now with Richard Price backing her, she could go ahead freely. More and more people entered the live stream. Daisy checked her fragile-looking makeup and spoke with a choke in her voice. "Hello everyone, I am Daisy Chase. I am the person whose dance shoes were laced with glass shards a while ago. I believe many people have an impression of me. Maybe some netizens don't know the truth yet. The person who put glass in my shoes is Ophelia Quinn." The bullet comments exploded instantly. Ophelia was too famous in the dance world. In the past 2 years, she had gone viral because of several breathtaking dances. Many people knew her. As soon as this name was mentioned, the heat in the livestream instantly increased several times. Looking at the continuous influx of viewers, Daisy continued to fabricate lies without changing her expression. "During the 3 years Ophelia sponsored me, she often supervised my dancing. At first, I thought this strictness was for my own good, and I respected and was grateful to her. But later, I discovered that she integrated my dance choreography from practice into her own so-called original choreography. From beginning to end, she is a plagiarist." Ophelia released a preview of a new dance a month ago. If you don't believe me, you can watch the clips in the preview first, then watch the full video of me dancing. Ophelia was also watching the live stream. She remembered that the only audience for this dance was Ethan. At that time, he suddenly offered to record it for her. Now it seemed he was in a hurry to send the full version of the dance to Daisy. Thinking of this, she smiled mockingly. Julian looked worried. "Do you want me to find someone?" Ophelia shook her head. "The innocent remain innocent. I have a clear conscience about things I haven't done. By doing this, she's only lifting a rock to drop it on her own foot." Public opinion on the internet had turned against Ophelia. A look of pride flashed in Daisy's eyes, and she continued to speak nonsense. "Ophelia hasn't released the full video because I got injured dancing that day and haven't been able to practice since. So, losing the object of her plagiarism, she couldn't release the dance." Daisy wiped away tears as she spoke. A fragile appearance always garnered sympathy. Many people began to speak viciously against Ophelia, claiming they would help Daisy seek justice. Inside the Price family mansion, Ethan watched Daisy's hypocritical appearance, feeling like his lungs were about to explode. He immediately wanted to release evidence to prove Ophelia's innocence, but Richard stopped him with a serious expression. "Ethan, if you help Ophelia, isn't that equivalent to slapping Daisy in the face? If you do that, the child will be criticized because of his mother as soon as he is born." Ethan suppressed his rage and tried to keep his tone calm. "She promised me she would take medicine every time, but now a child suddenly pops up. Isn't she just trying to use the child to threaten me? Dad, Daisy isn't a good person. This child cannot be kept. After I marry Leah, we will have children. Why do you insist on keeping an eye on Daisy?" But Richard didn't listen. "I think you are bewitched by Ophelia and can't distinguish what's important. I shouldn't have brought her back in the first place." Online opinion was intensifying. Ethan didn't want to waste words with him. Hardening his heart, he looked at Richard. "Do you want a grandson or do you want a son? If you insist on standing by Daisy's side, even if it means severing father-son relations with you, I will prove Leah's innocence." Richard's eyes widened, furious. His chest heaved rapidly. "You unfilial son, come back here." But no matter how Richard shouted and threatened, Ethan didn't look back. After organizing the evidence and hiring professionals to write a clarification statement, Ethan finally remembered to treat the wound on his arm. "Leah, wait a little longer. I will restore your innocence soon." When Ethan returned home, he found that not a single photo of him and Ophelia remained on the photo wall. He didn't know if Ophelia took these photos before leaving or if Daisy took it upon herself to take them down. He suddenly missed the time spent with Ophelia deeply. But Daisy had only moved in for a few days, yet the flowers in the living room were changed to the roses she liked. The couple's cups and bowls shared with Ophelia were now just his alone, and opening the closet, he couldn't even see a single piece of Ophelia's clothing. Ethan lay on the sofa, an unspeakable loneliness and solitude wrapping around his heart. They lived together for 10 whole years. How could there be not a single trace left? Ethan opened his phone album, flipping through photos with Ophelia one by one. Flipping through, the photos were finished, leaving only videos. With a trembling hand, Ethan clicked on the surveillance video of Ophelia's car accident again. He suddenly remembered that at the time, he felt the driver who hit Ophelia looked familiar. Before he could think about it carefully, he was interrupted by the news of Daisy's pregnancy. Ethan immediately took a screenshot and sent someone to investigate the driver. Results came quickly. At the moment he saw the truth, Ethan trembled with extreme anger. The driver was named Travis Chase. He was Daisy's brother. Ethan remembered clearly that day he got drunk and told Daisy about going to pick up rings with Ophelia. He didn't expect she would have Travis drive a car to hit Ophelia, and with perfect accuracy, hitting the left leg. Daisy clearly wanted to cut off Ophelia's dance path. A storm gradually brewed in Ethan's eyes. Find Travis Chase. Bring him to the villa. Just say his sister misses him. Mr. Price, bad news, another call came in, the tone very anxious. Miss Quinn bought a plane ticket to the UK for a week from now. Ethan was instantly frantic and irritable. The foundation of the Price Group was domestic. He couldn't abandon the company and run abroad to find Ophelia. Fortunately, he had the foresight to install a tracker on Ophelia's phone before returning it to her. Checking the location, Ophelia seemed to be shopping. Ethan's gaze darkened, and he quickly formed a plan. Ophelia asked around about Julian's hobbies and went out alone to prepare some gifts for him, hoping to make up for his childhood regrets. "Sister, want to buy flowers?" A little girl wearing patched clothes walked up to Ophelia. Her small face was red from the cold, and she looked like she came from a poor family. Ophelia had always been kind. Usually, she often visited children in orphanages. Now seeing this porcelain doll-like little girl, her heart melted completely. She crouched down, smiling gently. "How much? Give them all to me." Aside, Ethan sat in the car, silently observing all this. Sure enough, Ophelia bought all the flowers. After smelling the drug he had sprayed on the flowers, her figure staggered unsteadily. Seeing the opportunity, Ethan moved quickly and brought the unconscious Ophelia into the car. The little girl walked to the car and knocked on the window. Her face full of innocence. "Brother, remember to help me pay my mom's medical bills." Ethan wouldn't be stingy about such things and transferred a large sum of money to the little girl. The car drove toward the villa. Ethan looked at Ophelia sleeping in his arms and smiled with satisfaction. With Julian around, Ophelia wouldn't be willing to talk to him properly. He wanted to take Ophelia to a place where there were only the two of them. With the system's protection mechanism, Ophelia quickly regained consciousness, but she didn't act rashly. Ethan took her back to the villa, carried her into the bedroom, covered her with the quilt, and then sat by the bed waiting quietly, appearing to have no intention of leaving. "Ethan!" Ophelia opened her eyes, her voice freezing cold. "What is the meaning of this?" Ethan looked apologetic. "Leah, I had no other way. Don't go abroad with Julian, okay? For you, I've already severed ties with my father. I have no family left. Leah, I only have you." While they spoke, Ophelia's hand had already found the picture frame on the bedside table. Without hesitation, she grabbed the frame and smashed it violently against Ethan's head. He screamed, clutching his forehead, blood flowing through his fingers. Ophelia, who in the past would worry endlessly if Ethan even scraped his skin, didn't even glance at him now. She took advantage of the time Ethan was momentarily incapacitated to run downstairs quickly. Ethan wanted to chase, but seeing the disgust congealed in Ophelia's eyes, he suddenly felt drained of strength, unable to move his legs. "Ethan, if you don't want to erase the last bit of good memory I have of you, don't look for me in this way again." Ethan lay on the floor watching Ophelia's retreating back, wishing incomparably that she would turn back to look at him. But Ophelia didn't. She slammed the door heavily and left. Outside, Julian's car arrived just in time. He pulled Ophelia forcefully into his arms, his tone filled with lingering fear. "No matter where you go from now on, I'll accompany you. Don't run around alone anymore." As soon as Ophelia and Julian left, Travis arrived. He pushed open the door, yelling familiarly, "Brother-in-law." Ethan, covered in blood, scared him badly. Ethan told Travis to sit down and simply treated his wound. He asked casually, "Did your sister give you any instructions recently?" Travis's eyes were evasive. "What could there be? Just telling me to study hard, but I'm a little short on money recently. For the sake of my little nephew, can you, brother-in-law?" Ethan hid the disgust in his eyes and smiled. "I have something to ask you. If you confess honestly, I'll make sure you won't worry about money. Travis instantly looked happy. "What is it? Just ask, brother-in-law. Why did you drive the car to hit Ophelia?" Travis's smile froze, his face turning pale. Meeting Ethan's hateful gaze, he shivered in fright and immediately knelt down without dignity. At the same time, he cursed Daisy secretly in his heart. Daisy clearly told him that Ethan loved her to the bone, and bullying Ophelia a little wouldn't matter. But looking at it now, he looked ready to pursue it to the end. Travis weighed it for a moment and chose to clear himself and save his own skin, selling Daisy out completely. It was all my sister who told me to do it. I owed gambling debts. My sister said as long as I smashed Ophelia's leg, she would help me repay the debts, and she would help me handle it cleanly so I wouldn't have to bear any responsibility. Travis swallowed hard. My sister said only if Ophelia's leg was ruined could she get Ophelia's resources in the dance world and earn more money for me to spend. With a crack, Ethan crushed the glass water cup, shards cutting his palm. Exactly how many things hurting Ophelia had Daisy hidden from him? Ethan threw a phone at him with a dark face. "Say what you just confessed again. Record a video and send it to me." Travis did so quickly. Ethan walked to the side, opened the window, and found that the flowers and plants Ophelia planted on the balcony had died at some unknown time. He truly regretted it. Actually, from beginning to end, the person he loved had always been Ophelia. The reason things became like this was because he had once vowed that he absolutely wouldn't touch her before marriage. But as time went on, Ethan couldn't stand the loneliness. Just at this time, the pure and lovely Daisy appeared in his world. Ethan intended to just have a taste and stop, but he didn't expect that with a little indulgence, he would sink into it, unable to extricate himself. He indulged his own messing around, and also indulged Daisy doing things that hurt Ophelia. 2 lines of tears ran down his face. Having lived for over 20 years, Ethan had never regretted anything like this. After Ethan proposed cutting ties with his father, Richard fell ill and stopped caring about Daisy. Her parents made countless calls to her, saying they had run out of money and urging her to send money back. "We worked so hard to raise you, and now that you've flown up to a high branch, you ignore your parents. If you don't send money back within this week, we'll go to that guy named Price and reveal your background." Daisy was extremely annoyed and blocked their numbers directly. At this time, Ethan's sudden call was like rain after a drought. Daisy answered immediately. His tone returned to its usual gentleness. "Daisy, I've thought about it. Let's keep the child. I'm waiting for you at home." But Daisy didn't expect to see Travis as soon as she opened the door. Before she could react, the doors and windows were tightly shut. Intuition told Daisy that the development of matters was beyond her control. Ethan's eyes held no emotion. "Daisy Chase, do you want to clarify things for Leah yourself, or do you want me to help you?" Completely different from the gentle voice on the phone, Daisy looked at the two in shock and uncertainty. "What do you mean?" Ethan scoffed. "Travis has confessed everything about hitting Leah. I also have evidence of you framing Leah. If you don't want me to make it ugly, apologize publicly immediately." Travis had clearly agreed that once he took the money, he would never mention this matter. Daisy glared at Travis resentfully, then looked at Ethan with red eyes, pitifully saying, I did this all for. You have 2 minutes to consider." Ethan didn't soften his heart because of Daisy's tears again. Damn it, Daisy took a deep breath. If Ethan did the clarification, he would definitely belittle her to nothing. If she did it herself, maybe she could continue to play the victim and garner some sympathy. Daisy quickly made a choice. "I'll do it myself." The heat from the last incident hadn't passed yet. Many people instantly entered the live stream. Daisy was the perpetrator from start to finish, yet at this moment her eyes were red, tears hanging from the corners, looking completely like a victim. "What's wrong? Were you bullied by Ophelia again?" "Sister, don't be afraid. We always stand by your side. Just speak out." Seeing many netizens already biased towards her, Daisy choked up and spoke. "I'm sorry, everyone. The matter with Sis Ophelia before was a misunderstanding. She didn't hurt me, nor did she plagiarize my choreography. I was in the wrong first." As she spoke, Daisy began to whimper and cry again, unable to speak a complete sentence. Her appearance made people let their imaginations run wild. Sure enough, people soon started guessing. "I think this sister was threatened to help Ophelia whitewash. Who would believe this is a misunderstanding?" If it really was a misunderstanding, why didn't Ophelia come out to prove it herself? But before Daisy finished acting out this good show, the live stream was banned by the administrator. Daisy's fragile expression froze on her face. In the next instant, a heavy slap landed. Ethan was driven mad by Daisy's operation. "Daisy Chase, is this how you help someone clarify? Then, what do you want me to do?" Daisy looked like she had suffered a huge injustice. "I said it was a misunderstanding, but people didn't believe it. What can I do?" "Ethan, from the beginning, you were the one helping me buy bots to cyberbully Ophelia regarding the stage play. Now you're playing the good guy. Is it all my fault that Ophelia left?" Ethan flew into a rage out of humiliation and slapped her again. Daisy's mouth bled from the blow. He gritted his teeth. "You refuse to repent. I'll help you." With Ethan's arrangements, major social media trending topics were soon occupied by hashtags about Daisy framing Ophelia. The clarification statement was logical and well-founded, every word slapping Daisy in the face. She staged the glass shards and the dance shoes herself. She obtained the full video of Ophelia's choreography in advance and bit back, accusing Ophelia. While public opinion was fermenting intensely, many students sponsored by Ophelia stood up to speak for her. Various transfer records and chat screenshots proved that Ophelia had been a good person from start to finish. In an instant, Daisy was spat upon by millions of people online. At this time, another heavy bomb was thrown. Daisy's biological brother, Travis, stood up to testify that he was coerced by her to deliberately cause a car accident to hurt Ophelia. Countless people felt injustice for Ophelia, and some even dug up Daisy's background. Her birthplace and education were ordinary. What made netizens boil over were the many dating photos Daisy had posted in her friend circle. Someone recognized that Daisy's date was Ophelia's fiancé, Ethan Price. Immediately after, many people brought out photos secretly taken in the hospital of Daisy and Ethan going for a pregnancy checkup together. Now, overwhelming vicious words were directed at Daisy. Ophelia kindly sponsored her education. "I didn't expect that plagiarizing someone's original dance wasn't enough. She also had to covet someone else's fiancé, acting pitiful and biting Ophelia back before, truly an ungrateful white-eyed wolf. No wonder I heard Ophelia ran away from the wedding. This Ethan isn't anything good either." Ethan forced Daisy's face over viciously, making her read every sarcastic comment from netizens. Daisy collapsed completely, screaming madly. "Why? Ethan, clearly you were the one who came to keep me first. Why blame everything on me? If you hadn't had second thoughts first, where would I have the chance to exploit? Now that Ophelia doesn't want you anymore, you vent all your anger on me." "Ethan, are you even a man?" Daisy roared hysterically. Ethan clicked his tongue irritably and looked at the assistant. "Take her to a private hospital and abort the child." Daisy was dragged away screaming, cursing Ethan ceaselessly. After Ophelia woke up, she habitually turned over to check Julian's wounds. But he had been awake for a while, looking at his phone with a solemn face. "What's wrong?" Julian handed the phone to Ophelia. "Someone clarified for you. It must be Ethan's doing." Ophelia casually scrolled through a few comments, acting like she didn't care much. At least he has a little conscience. Suddenly, Ophelia's hand paused. She saw someone saying Ethan was her fiancé. She quickly opened the social platform she hadn't logged into for a long time. Ignoring the 999 private messages, she posted a statement. "Mr. Price and I have broken up. He is not my fiancé either. Thank you, everyone." Looking at this statement, Julian couldn't help curling his lips. He immediately liked and reposted it, commenting with 3 hugging emojis. This caused another uproar. Before long, Ophelia's comment section turned from cursing Daisy and Ethan to blessings for her and Julian. Ophelia paid no more attention to this matter, changed clothes, and went out with Julian to try on wedding dresses. But as soon as she opened the door, Ethan was kneeling before her. He looked very haggard, with dark circles under his eyes and stubble on his chin unchecked. He raised his head to look at Ophelia like a homeless stray dog begging for its owner's forgiveness. "I've clarified things for you. The child has been aborted too." Tears burst forth. Ethan's voice trembled. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want—" A skirt hem brushed past Ethan's face. His voice stopped abruptly. Ophelia didn't listen to him speak, didn't even glance at him. Instead, holding Julian's arm, she left talking and laughing. It was as if they were already people from completely different worlds. Going abroad was a decision Ophelia and Julian hit off instantly. Julian's companies were established abroad, and Ophelia had long wanted to go abroad for advanced studies in dance. She had stayed in the country previously only to strategize Ethan. Everything was ready. Before leaving the country, Ophelia accompanied Julian to the hospital for a checkup one last time. The wounds had scabbed over. Julian was recovering well. His attending doctor was somewhat surprised. "I rarely see Mr. Jones this cheerful." In his impression, Julian was always cold and gloomy, but now he was talking and laughing with this lady, discussing the future. The doctor finally felt relieved. This patient probably wouldn't hurt himself again. Julian smiled faintly and held Ophelia's hand. "She cured me." Suddenly there was a commotion outside the room. Ophelia heard someone shouting, "There's someone standing on the rooftop edge. Looks like they're going to jump." She glanced out the window and saw Ethan standing by the rooftop railing. Ophelia was startled. She couldn't understand what exactly Ethan wanted to do. A few seconds later, she received a call from the police. "Miss Quinn, Mr. Price is at risk of jumping off the building. After negotiation, he asked to see you, so we would like to ask you to help soothe Mr. Price's emotions." Ophelia pondered for a moment and said okay. It was time to say goodbye to Ethan properly. Wind whistled past her ears. Ophelia walked onto the rooftop. 3 or 4 police officers were racking their brains to soothe Ethan, but he was unresponsive like a puppet, just holding the railing, standing at the edge, looking silently down. "Ethan?" It wasn't until Ophelia called him that he turned his head as if waking from a dream, his eyes red and swollen. "Leah!" His voice was terrifyingly hoarse. "Don't go abroad, okay?" Ethan knew clearly that Ophelia could no longer return to his side. He could persuade himself to accept Ophelia marrying another man, but he couldn't accept not seeing Ophelia for a long time. Wouldn't that be just like when he was young, living all alone again? Ophelia nodded. "Okay, I promise you." "Really?" A few sparks of starlight reignited in Ethan's eyes. He took a few steps toward Ophelia. "Then can we still meet often?" "Yes." "Ethan, go to hell." Daisy's voice suddenly came. She had just claimed to be Ethan's girlfriend to help soothe him and snuck onto the rooftop. But she came to perish together with Ethan. Ethan forcibly aborted her child and ruined her life, so he shouldn't think of living well either. Daisy rushed toward Ethan like a madwoman, forcibly dragging him off the rooftop with her with a loud bang. Screams erupted from the crowd downstairs. Ophelia's eyes widened instantly. She leaned against the railing with the police looking down. The fire department had arrived in time and deployed an air cushion catching Ethan. But Daisy wasn't so lucky. She fell face first onto the ground, blood pooling everywhere, with no possibility of survival. Ophelia sighed. She said silently in her heart, "Ethan, we are completely finished." Ethan had a dream. He dreamed of when he was very young, a group of classmates playing truth or dare together. He had always been antisocial and originally disdained participating. But Ophelia was very popular. Regardless of gender, the kids in the class had good relationships with her. Ophelia lost the game and chose dare, having to read wedding vows with a boy. He heard a group of boys arguing over who would play Ophelia's groom. Finally, they let Ophelia decide herself. Ophelia pointed her finger. "I want Jull." "Ophelia Quinn," Ethan shouted at her somewhat angrily, holding her hand tight, but his ears quietly turned red. "You aren't allowed to choose anyone else. Your groom can only be me." In memory, Ophelia should have smiled and nodded at him, but the dreamscape suddenly began to distort. Ophelia didn't smile. She shook off his hand with a cold face and ran firmly to Julian's side. "No, Ethan, I hate you the most." Ophelia took Julian's hand and walked further and further away. Ethan followed behind them but couldn't catch up no matter what. Leah. Ethan woke up from the nightmare. With a start, cold sweat soaking his back. Pain from his left leg made him gasp. He remembered. When pushed off the rooftop by Daisy, his left leg hit the air conditioning unit. But Ethan didn't blame Daisy. He thought of Ophelia's left leg injured in the car accident. Did it hurt like this back then too? He wanted to experience personally the pain Ophelia suffered because of him. "Mr. Price, you're awake?" Assistant Liu pushed open the door, his tone excited. "The doctor said only your leg is injured. There's nothing serious elsewhere. You need to stay in the hospital for a while." "Where's Leah?" Assistant Liu fell silent. After a long time, he whispered, "Miss Quinn went abroad this morning." Ethan didn't speak. Soon, tears blurred his vision. Assistant Liu panicked too. "Should I book a flight for you?" Ethan shook his head, crying like a child. "She doesn't want to see me." After Ethan was discharged, everything at home was covered in a thin layer of dust. He looked at the sofa. It was empty, without Ophelia curled up playing games. He looked at the kitchen. It was pitch black, without Ophelia busily preparing dinner for him. He looked at the small garden again. It was a mess, without Ophelia whispering to the plants to grow up fast while watering them. In this villa, Ophelia's figure would never, ever appear again, just like when he was very, very young. His mother died, and his father cared only about his career, coming home a handful of times a year. Such a big villa, inhabited only by him. Sleeping alone, eating alone, sitting in a daze alone. It wasn't until Ophelia moved in that a few more lights lit up in the dim villa, and this house finally had the taste of home. Many years ago, on Ethan's 10th birthday, Ophelia stood on a small stool and made a cake for him by hand. It was only then that he learned a birthday turned out to be a special day when one could receive gifts and cake. Ophelia sang him a birthday song and let him make a wish over the cake. Ethan could still clearly remember now that his wish was to be with Ophelia forever, to have a home with Ophelia. Clearly such a sincere wish, clearly a wish that could have been realized so easily. How did he destroy this relationship with his own hands? Ethan lay on the bed, hugging the quilt Ophelia had used, fantasizing she was still by his side, sobbing uncontrollably. Daisy's scandal was too ugly. Price Group's stock price fell again and again. But Ethan was devastated, shutting himself in the villa all day, seeing no one. He tried to restore the villa to how it looked before. Ophelia loved raising flowers and plants, loved hanging warm little decorations in the room. But after Daisy moved in, she threw these things away with the attitude of a mistress. Fortunately, Ethan still remembered the placement of these things, and there were many photos stored in his phone. He spent a month restoring the villa bit by bit to how it looked when Ophelia was still there. A familiar feeling emerged. Ethan began to deceive himself with fantasies again. He took a few photos, wanting to send them to Ophelia. But just as he opened WeChat, he found that Ophelia had posted a moment. It was her and Julian's marriage certificate. Ethan looked at the red background photo on the certificate. Ophelia was smiling happily. It was the kind of smile she would show a long, long time ago when they first got together. Ethan zoomed in on the photo, fingertips gently brushing over Ophelia's face, eyes revealing deep nostalgia. Although unwilling, he had to admit that Ophelia and Julian looked very compatible. Ethan noted the wedding location and time Ophelia posted and bought a ticket to London. London in November was already snowing heavily. At the beginning of the year, Ophelia was still making an agreement with Ethan to see the snow together. Ethan smiled bitterly. He stood under a street lamp holding an umbrella. The warm yellow light enveloped him, making him look less lonely. Before long, a black Bentley stopped in front of Ethan. Julian got out of the car, raising his eyebrows slightly at Ethan. "What do you want to talk to me about?" Ethan's breath hitched. Just thinking that this man in front of him would be with Ophelia forever in the future made his eyes sore. "Just wanted to ask how Leah is doing recently. Does her leg still hurt? Is she used to the food here? Is she happy recently? Did she mention him?" The umbrella slipped from Ethan's hand. Ethan sighed, letting snowflakes fall on him. "I miss her very much, but I understand I shouldn't disturb her anymore." In the sleepless nights of the past month, Ethan tossed and turned, his mind constantly replaying the things he did to betray Ophelia. He spurned himself, condemned himself, but it was all too late. Ethan finally understood that he had caused irreparable harm to Ophelia. So much so that even if his longing overflowed, he didn't have the courage to see Ophelia face to face. Julian lifted his eyelids to scan Ethan and spoke faintly. "She is very well. We are getting married next week." A bitterness surfaced at the corner of Ethan's mouth, and he gave a soft MMM. For a moment, the two were speechless. "Jules," a brisk voice broke the silence. Ophelia ran toward Julian smiling and threw herself into his arms. Julian caught her steadily, pinching her flushed face, eyes full of mirth. "It's cold outside. Didn't you say you'd wait for me to pick you up? I wanted to see you, so I came directly." Ophelia wrapped a scarf around him. "Who were you talking to just now?" Julian paused, turned to look, and found Ethan was gone. He smiled helplessly. "A friend I don't know well, just exchanged a few casual greetings." Ophelia nodded and didn't care too much. She held Julian's arm and walked into the distance, chattering nonstop, occasionally stopping to cover her stomach and laugh uncontrollably. Ethan followed silently behind them, as if seeing himself and Ophelia from a few years ago. He kept a distance that was neither too far nor too close, just enough to hear Ophelia's voice. The voice he yearned for day and night, and the question he hadn't been able to ask just now already had an answer Ophelia would not mention him. Today was the day Ophelia and Julian got married. Looking at herself in the pure white wedding dress in the mirror, she felt a long-lost sense of trance. She hadn't expected that after 18 years of sincerely trying to capture Ethan's heart, the person she ultimately married was Julian. Nervous! A hand rested on Ophelia's shoulder, and Julian also appeared in the mirror. Looking at Ophelia, the love in his eyes was almost overflowing. Julian took Ophelia's hand and kissed her fingertips lightly. "Leah, you are especially beautiful today." Being gazed at so passionately by Julian, Ophelia couldn't help but feel shy. "I'm definitely a little nervous, but thinking about spending the rest of my life with you, only happiness remains in my heart." Julian and Ophelia had many friends abroad. Even though neither had family to invite, many people still came to the wedding. Amidst a sky full of falling flowers, Julian gazed at Ophelia and swore solemnly. "I am willing to go against my nature for you, defy my instincts, overcome my selfishness, greed, and cowardice, and give you tolerance, loyalty, and bravery." Julian's eyes were very bright. "You are my one and only." Ophelia shed tears of happiness and emotion, hugging Julian. Offstage, Ethan was also weeping silently. Hearing Julian's wedding vows, his heart felt like it was being repeatedly sliced by a dull knife. He claimed to love Ophelia miserably, yet keeping Daisy as a mistress was greed. Hiding it from Ophelia was cowardice. Being reluctant to let go of either side was selfishness. He was neither brave nor loyal enough. For a full 10 years, Ophelia's youth was wasted on him. He shouldn't appear in Ophelia's world anymore to block her future happiness. When Julian and Ophelia stood on stage, raising a toast to the guests, Ethan, standing in the corner, also raised his wine glass. This was the first time he genuinely hoped Ophelia and Julian could be happy. But Ethan didn't expect that, with so many people present, Ophelia actually saw him hiding in the corner. When their eyes met, Ethan trembled uncontrollably all over, wishing he could rush forward and tell Ophelia everything he had held in his heart all these years. But Ophelia only showed slight surprise on her face, then smiled politely at him and shifted her gaze away without attachment, as if they were just distant, polite, ordinary acquaintances. Ethan lowered his gaze and smiled self-deprecatingly. Tears rolled into the wine glass, and he drank it all in one gulp. He looked with incomparable attachment at Ophelia in her wedding dress, breathtakingly beautiful. If he hadn't been possessed by ghosts that day and caused a huge mistake, the person exchanging rings and vows with Ophelia now should have been him, right? Ethan walked to the gift registration desk and, under the shocked gaze of the receiver, handed over a bank card containing a sky-high sum. This was originally the bride price he prepared to marry Ophelia. Even if it was all converted to cash and given as a gift, Ethan could deceive himself and treat it as having married Ophelia once. Ethan originally thought he would return to his country after the wedding ended. But inexplicably, learning that Ophelia and Julian were going to Northern Europe for their honeymoon, he also bought a ticket. Because a few years ago, he had gone there once with Ophelia. He wanted to walk the paths they had once walked together again. Ethan wrapped himself up tight hat, sunglasses, and mask, all on following behind them all along. He watched Julian hold an umbrella for Ophelia, take photos of her, pull her into his coat when the wind blew. Watching Ophelia's slightly flushed face, even though he was jealous enough to go crazy, he still convinced himself time and again that it was good as long as Ophelia was happy. The only time Ethan didn't follow Ophelia was because they passed a gift shop. He looked up at the old marquee lights, filled with emotion. He and Ophelia had been to this shop and mailed many postcards back from here together. Ethan stopped there, turned his head to look at Ophelia continuing forward, retracted his gaze, and walked into the gift shop. The owner greeted him friendly, but Ethan ignored him. He stared wide-eyed at the photo of him and Ophelia in the center of the photo wall, his body trembling uncontrollably again. When was this put up? Ethan remembered. At that time, Ophelia pulled him in here to pick gifts, but Daisy messaged him saying she had a cold and felt very uncomfortable. Ethan let Ophelia choose alone while he stood at the door talking to Daisy on the phone for a long time, only hanging up in a panic when Ophelia came out. He asked casually, "Why were you in there so long?" A sly smile flashed in Ophelia's eyes. "Not telling you." Now he knew why. Ethan stared at the sticky note posted next to the photo, choking with sobs. There was a line of elegant handwriting on the paper. "May Ethan have joy year after year, peace and happiness, and may everything go as he wishes." Ethan's emotions finally lost control, and he wept silently in that moment. After Ophelia and Julian's honeymoon ended, Ethan also returned to his country. Who knew that as soon as he got out of the car, he saw Daisy's parents guarding the villa entrance with large and small bags. Seeing Ethan, Daisy's father pointed at him and cursed, spittle flying. "It was you who killed my daughter, you murderer. How do you have the face to return to the place where my daughter lived?" Daisy's mother wailed and knelt on the ground, crying loudly. "I worked so hard to raise Daisy. She clearly had a bright future, but it was ruined by you." Travis stood beside the two, looking embarrassed. Of course, they knew Daisy wanted to push Ethan off the building, which led to her fall and death, but they relied entirely on Daisy sending money back to maintain the family's expenses. Now that Daisy was dead, they had no money to use, so they were forced to come find Ethan and make a scene. Ethan already hated Daisy to the core.